CG, the Victoria.
We are here, ma.
Muhammed, will you be speaking alone? Is Helen joining you?
I'm not sure yet. She just called me now again. Probably she will be here, but I don't know.
Okay, because we need your part now. It's very
Okay.
important.
Yes, ma'am.
For CO, what the hell is this? The a priori party. Sorry, Bright and Declan, that's Mystique. Are you guys here?
Yeah, I'm available.
All right, cool. Um, so we're looking for OO. I'm coming, please. Oh, are you now on the call? James or Gideon? Is any of you on the call? Preferably the both of you.
Yeah, OO is on.
All right, great, cool. All right, I saw my last panelist just joined it. All right, guys. So my name is Grace Nzako, and I'll be the chair for this round. With me on panel are four inestimable judges in the presence of Fahan, Idris, Awani, and myself. Ajake dropped off, I think. So please, guys, just quickly introduce yourselves as always. If you want to follow due protocol, here.
Like before we start some question, are we maintaining the standard time of 5 minutes throughout or?
Yes to that question. It's still a standard 5 minutes for this tournament, not 7. Did you get my response?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So I think that okay, cool. So like I said, my judges are 4, 3 plus me 4. I'm just going to quickly read out the motion once again and we'll just continue. Allow me to turn on my laptop, sorry. Oof. All right. So the motion for let them. All right. Okay, Esther, I got your message. No problem. So the motion for grand finals, having understood the Infoslide reads, this house prefers a world in which humanity becomes aware that we are living in a simulation. So with no further ado, guys, I would welcome the Prime Minister to open up the debate for us. Hear him.
Thank you, Chair. Please, can I confirm that I'm audible?
Loud and clear. We carry on.
Okay, so for POI preferences, just unmute. I will not take a POI, but I will take clarity because it's a 5-minute speech. My partner would be able to engage up teams. So without most waste of time, my speech would begin then in 3, 2, 1. So, Mr. Speaker, we think that the idea is very simple. We would have a world where people would be aware that a system exists such that it is definitely not the end. We think that people would come to the awareness of the fact that life is free, life is all for them. We think that we bring people into the idea, into the knowledge of the existence of the idea that all they have is one life to live and none other. We think that it does something very good for us in today's debate. But first off, in terms of characterization and framing, all we would tell you is that first, the info slide is very explanatory, but just to add to that, we tell you this, right? It's very important to know that the awareness of the existence of a simulation does not necessarily enable you to break out of the simulation. It means that every single rule that exists that keeps you within the confines of that simulation still exists thus as it would have otherwise existed. The only difference then between status quo and the world that we prefer is that you come into the knowledge of the existence of this system. It doesn't necessarily mean that you get out or get the ability or the epistemic access to get out of the system. The first thing that we do for people in our world is that we give them the ability to self-actualize on two different levels, and we'll be very quick with this. The first is this, right? We think that in the vast majority of instances, the reason why persons are unable to live life exactly as they want to live it, to the extent that it does not coincide with the free will of other persons, is largely because of the idea that exists in religious and cultural systems where they think that punitive systems exist outside of this world that are eternal, that would prevent them from expressing themselves. But then secondly, we think that the reason why you have a whole lot of global diversification and disunity that exists is due to the fact that persons are born unavoidably into different families and different systems, different cultures and different religions that they just cannot get away from. We think that at the point when the existence of the knowledge of not necessarily any hard and fast laid down disunity exists, there is more incentive for global unity to exist. What it looks like is this, right? The idea of religious diversification gets out. We think that the idea of race gets out because people just naturally understand that they were made in a certain way to play a certain role in a simulation. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are superior. So it doesn't necessarily mean that there's a struggle of what eternity should look like or what God surpasses whatever God. We think that at the point where people come into that knowledge, they have more incentive for global unity. We think that the impact of this is great. We think that the issue of nationalization and then breakdown of societal peace is something that we cater for in today's debates. But we think again that we give people the ability to make variety of choices without being limited by the thought that, oh, there's some punitive mechanism that exists to the amount of choices that they will make, to the extent where it does not coincide with the free will of other persons, right? Understand that this is very key. We give people the ability to live in the moment without thoughts of consequence. What then is the problem with this world? We think that it is legit for us to argue that, oh, the incentive for people to break down society will exist because at the point when they believe that, oh, that there is nothing after this, that they have incentive to break down reality and to break down society. The reason is simple, because a lot of persons are usually moral because of cultural and religious systems, not necessarily because of the CJS. It is just a deterrent that exists from religious institutions that tells them that, oh, at the point when they do this or do that, that they will face eternal consequences. We think that UP might argue that the incentive to break down society might exist. The reason why we disagree with that is very simple. The first is that in status quo, agnostics and atheists that already exist do not break down society, but then they have much incentive to actually make money and help people. This looks like people like Elon Musk, Bill Gates, that necessarily declare that they do not necessarily buy into religious beliefs. However, they still push forward, living their best lives, helping out people. We think that status quo already proves that that would not necessarily happen. But then even if you think that, oh, this is not enough proof, we go forward by telling you that the CJS exists as a deterrent, but even better in our world. Because at the point when we prove to you that global unity would exist, they would have more capacity to address such issues. We think again that it is very necessary to note that, oh, at the point when UP argues that progressivism would no longer exist because people would not have the drive to go forward, we already show you how that is not true to the extent where in status quo, agnostics and atheists already do all those things that they claim people would not be able to do. Two final things. We think that in the vast majority of instances, people live in poverty and they are saddened by it. People want to take their lives and end it because they think life is not worth living. But then they are stopped from doing that because religion sells the idea to them that suicide faces eternal consequences. We think that we give people a variety of choices to choose to live or choose not to live without any thought of consequences. But we give people around them the choice to actually be happy or sad about the death of persons. We think that the fear of death exists surrounding largely the fear of death that exists largely surrounds the fear of eternal damnation and all, and as per uncertainties. We think that we take away all of those things and we give people the ability to self-actualize, the ability to choose. We think that global unity is something we do, but finally, we think that the deterrence to everything still exists in status quo. We think on this, we've been from OG. Here.
Panel thanks the Prime Minister for that very fine speech and will gladly move over to the Leader of Opposition. Hello, are you on the call?
Oh yes, I'm all right. I'm on.
All right, cool. I can hear you, James. The stage is all yours, please.
every support system. So let me just set my timer. And also shout outs to my partner. Yeah, that's true. Okay. I'm unable to share my video. I'm really sorry, but hopefully.
I don't think it's a necessity. You can continue with audio. Don't worry.
All right. So
Sure.
assuming I'm audible.
You are audible.
All right. I'm just gonna start my speech in 3, 2, and 1. Chair, I feel like there should be a very, very clear comparative from inside government, right? I think APM says that, hey, look, we think that individuals, when they make it like free life by making them aware to say that they are living in a world of simulation, right? But also they think that you create global diversification, religious diversification, and stuff like you don't create superiority. I think one major thing that I don't get from them is like how you mechanize this kind of things, but also you never understand the real understanding of how individuals look like. Chair, I feel like we have to understand how individuals look like within society, right? These are individuals that often want to make life meaningful, right? That is why you have existence of things like relationships, perhaps friendships, to form that kind of unity or like to form that kind of word where you create meaning in that kind of life. This not only drives the attention for these individuals to continuously cater for those friendships, but also it drives an idea of caring for them, right? That is why you see the existence of individuals continuously caring about that relationships. It means that whenever they feel like that relationship is insecure, they become oftentimes curious about like wanting to find out what is the most likely thing that is happening in that thing. I think individuals' curiosity nature makes it extremely bad for these individuals to justify on government that it is going to be perhaps a better world in that kind of regard. But I think the second chart is quite simple, right? You have to understand that these individuals oftentimes may go through the various experiences. These experiences could either be bad or good. The major incentive of why you get those experiences is not only because individuals learn certain lessons, but also it makes life meaningful in that kind of regard. We think that the comparative on government is to say you create a world of just simulation. I think we have to understand how this world looks like. One, you create just an engineered world, but also you make it a science fiction. You never have like the comparative of how you're going to be continuously ascertaining for these kind of things. You never create authenticity on their side of the house, which think that that is extremely bad. Individuals' nature makes them be willing to carry out experiences. That is why it becomes extremely important for individuals to create purpose in that kind of regard. But I think the second chart is to say how humanity already looks like. You have the global community. That is why you have individuals continuously uniting with each other, right? It means that oftentimes various individuals care about these individuals. That is why when you create a world of curiosity, right, individuals are going to be perhaps asking themselves how this world is going to look like. That is why even when individuals were in position to access certain information, for example, that USA had discovered some aliens, they were curious. They were summoning kind of Trump, and they assumed that these things are like perhaps true. That means that people are most likely going to be creating propaganda that creates political unrest, but also it becomes extremely detrimental to the global market, right? It means that you never ascertain how those things happen on their side of the house. That is why we think that OO is going to just like try to rank above every other team anyways. But I think the second chart is just on principle, how individuals continuously work in society. You have the free will. I think OG tries to assume this kind of thing, but they never try to mechanize how this thing looks like. When you continuously allow individuals, it becomes it normal. Individuals are going to be believing those kind of things, but they never create like that authenticity anyways. We think like just two mechanisms here to analyze how free will exists. One, individuals oftentimes want to learn certain things, right? They become kind of, like incentivized on certain things. For example, when individuals, for example, within the African context, were kind of like neocolonized in that kind of manner, they oftentimes resisted against that colonial rule. It means that they oftentimes want to prioritize their good, like their good kind of nature anyways. The impact of this is to say you always avoid control of certain things, and that's just like the comparative you get on our side of the house anyways. But I think the second mechanism is to say individuals always want to resist to do bad, right? That is why individuals within society, they never want to opt into things like that are gonna be immoral because they are fearing jail in that kind of regard. The importance of that is to say you create a global free will where you create like that peace within that specific country. Individuals do not only become good in that kind of manner, but also it becomes like extremely important to prioritize how humanity looks like. Chair, I think we have to just get like the clear comparative, right? On principle, we showed you how free will is going to be like justifiable on our side of the house, but also the second idea is how you create individuals become more meaningful. One, because they undergo certain experiences, you jeopardize those kind of things. They never experience like certain things to be real, but when you make it aware, I think the assumption on their side is that you never want to be living in this kind of world, but you believe in that kind of world. It directly drives your attention to those kind of things. You never have existence of free will, but also you never make humanity being real in that kind of regard. We think that the comparative on our side, you create more humanity, more more meaningful, but also you have a certain kind of like a certain degree of like creating just certain things real and authenticity in that kind of regard. The last chat is about how curiosity becomes extremely bad. See, when science fiction becomes exclusively highly invested in, right? For example, when you have individuals like Elon Musk, perhaps creating the most generous kind of science fiction sword, individuals oftentimes drive attention to these things. They never create like a clear mechanism of how these kind of things are gonna be working. We think that the kind of assumption and you create belief in that kind of word, it becomes bad. Individuals become not real on that kind of regard. You lose experiences in that kind of regard. But I think on the last bit on principle, our side, you create free will. Proud to win from here.
All right, cool. Thank you very much. So panel thanks the leader of opposition for that very fine speech, and we gladly welcome the Deputy Prime Minister. DPM, are you on the call?
Yeah, I'm on the call. I'm audible.
Yes, you're allowed. Yeah.
All right. This is my okay. I start my speech in 3, 2, now. Panel, major clashes from opening opposition is simple. 1, curiosity. 2, there would be no authenticity and would be meaningless. Now let's tell you why this curiosity idea doesn't make any sense, right? They say curiosity, but the idea here is not about about the visibility. I think the chart on curiosity, right, or what this debate should be about is about the narrative of people towards this thing. So it's supposed to be how do people narrate or how do people visualize these things or how do people react to the idea or to the knowledge of knowing that they are simulated in itself, right? But the biggest argument that they have here is on authenticity and how people would not see any sort of meaning to life, right? But here is the simple response to that. I think the human nature will always reconstruct a new meaning, right? And this new definition is what gives purpose to life. So notice how even as a human being, once you get an answer to a question, you always find a new question. The idea is very simple. The intrinsic human nature is to always find a new purpose. So even if you say, oh, the knowledge of say you were simulated is something that obviously takes away your sort of meaningfulness in life. The idea shifts because you're a human being and you always have questions that you want to answer. It means that your purpose changes as a human being or as a person, or the narrative that you have is something that ultimately changes the way you view life and obviously gives you new purpose within that regard. So I don't think meaningless or meaninglessness is something that obviously reigns on their side of the house. But even in the worst case scenario where everything is entirely simulated, we think that if this narrative is actually true, the idea of meaningless or authenticity cannot work, because if you were simulated, quote and unquote, then these people who obviously simulated you can obviously simulate you to have purpose or to have meaning, or to obviously make you authenticate the relationship that you sort of have within this regard. But what did my partner tell you from opening government? The first thing that I will tell you is on how there will be some sort of existential stability. Notice how within status quo, there's quite a bunch of fear on an individual level and on a collective level. There are things like climate change, there are things like AI risk, there are things like pandemics happening, and there are other things like terrorism that obviously happens within status quo. The idea here is very simple. Knowing that or having the knowledge that everything is a simulation reduces the amount of anxiety that exists within like the human space and the human hemisphere as a whole, right? One, because you know, obviously, pandemic is not within our control. This thing is obviously programmed. So at a point where I die, I know I'm not probably like dying or losing my life. I'm just going for probably a reset. So I'm going to sleep somewhere. I think this is something that is obviously better for human beings as a whole, especially because it reduces the amount of anxiety that they have as a whole, right? And this is on an individual and on a collective level. But the second thing that my partner argues to you on global unity, and these guys don't even engage it, so it's just obviously an argument that wins from open governance, right? Now, within status quo, there's quite a bunch of unrest that exists from things like religion, things like ideology, things like nationalism. But what brings forth the idea of religion, what makes this ideology to stand out, is that humans always have the question of where do they come from? And these questions are things that remain unanswered, right? And this is the reason why it's easier for somebody to tell you, oh, there's a God somewhere, and you have to respect him because it is from him that you came from, and you're obviously going to return to him. But secondly, they put a caveat to you, say, if you do not respect him or if you do not live according to his rule, you're obviously going to die, and you're obviously going to to do a lot. Like there's so much proselytization going on within the world, right? I think the biggest impact here is that reduce the amount of terrorism that comes from extremism. Because this is how the highest form of terrorism that exists within status quo are obviously from things like extremism. I think a world where everybody has the knowledge that there's some sort of simulation, it reduces the incentive for people to continue to be extremists, and this is something that obviously reduces the mass killing and mass bombardments that exist within status quo. But the final thing to then argue here, because my time is up, is on this idea of the opt-out mechanism that exists, right? Because notice how we think things like religion, we think things like ideologies, or we think things like nationalism. The opt-out mechanism is very, very little, right? I'm not taking, or just shoot a theory.
Okay, religion is just a fundamental doctrine in society. Your world assumes individuals gonna be believing in science fiction. Engage on why that is exclusively based on
Again,
your side,
that is
but also how do you solve those things
simply
in
in
your
the emotion. Let me continue. My time is gone. That's simply in the emotion, right? The idea here is the narrative. So everybody knows and thinks that we are in a simulation. So the idea of this debate is to principally engage how this narrative affects human beings, right? We world where we think that everybody as humanity thinks that they are simulated, right? The idea of religion, the cap that religion has on individuals, is something that necessarily reduces within status quo. And this is something that's obviously going to be better, especially because on an individual level, there's so lot of pressure that comes from buying into of this sort of ideologies. But the final thing here is on opt-out thinking, and my partner mechanized this well to tell you that, see, what exists within status quo is that you have a world, right, where there's some sort of laws, and these people tell you if you die, you're going to hellfire. And this is something that obviously puts a caveat on people's ability to self-actualize. I think our word is the word that tells you that if you die, you just die, you're just a mere human being. But also the people that are actually love you and who also buy into these ideologies, they obviously know that, say, if you die, you didn't go to hell, you just had a nice sleep somewhere else. I think this is better for individuals as a collective and as individuals. Proudly opening government.
Yeah. Panel, thanks GPM for that very fine speech, and thank you guys for the POIs, because I was wondering what was going on. All right, guys. So we'll gladly welcome the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Jen, are you on the call? Jello, Gideon.
I'm on the call.
Do you need a minute? Sorry, a second.
I don't know. Am I audible now? Because I was having a hard time trying to speak.
I know I can hear you. You're loud and clear.
All right. I think I can start.
Okay.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Sure. Look at what happens when Andrew Tate tells people that we exist in a matrix and whatever we do is generated and things that probably look like that. The first case of impact that you get is that very many people start to believe that going to school is a scam, going to work is a scam, and they probably don't need to engage in any of those things because it is something that has already been programmed that society is supposed to be able to do. The first set of impact is that people become very unproductive because they feel like being able to engage in other productive activities that society is supposed to be engaged in is probably a scam, and they probably want to break out of that. But also, just to show you how people value their state of free will, at a point in time that you have countries that were once colonized struggling to get their independence from their colonial masters in any way possible, through things like rebellions, through being able to like sit with them on round table talks to be able to make sure that they can be able to overcome this period in which they were captive. But also the entire idea that people don't do bad things, or people usually desist from doing bad things because they feel like they're going to go to jail and they're not going to have the equalness in terms of free will like that they had when they were outside. I think this is just enough to justify to you how much people prefer their free will. How does it engage in today's debate? At a point in time that people then get to realize that they don't have the free will that they thought they were having, but rather there is someone that is pulling the strings from above. These individuals are human. And you know that from human nature that we give to you from our opening speech is that humans are very curious individuals. That is why you end up seeing that there is a lot of investment in status quo in things like space exploration, but also things like ocean exploration, because people want to be able to know what is beyond the horizon and things that probably look like that. What we give to you that was not engaged from our opening speech is quite simple, that you then generate space for individuals to start spreading propaganda against government, to say that government is largely affiliated with the entire scheme that they didn't tell people. You see, even with the existence of structures within society where there is the existence of government to ensure that there is a lot of social peace and things that probably look like that, at a point in time that tries to be impacted into individuals who have now been told that they were living a programmed life, they probably retaliate because they think government is also in on those specific things. What do we tell to you? That you then make government very unpopular in that particular way. That is to say, people no longer want to hear what comes out of government. You have rebellions because people still want to break free from what they feel is captive to them. The entire church of saying people don't probably want to, people don't want people don't want to leave, or the assumption that people wouldn't want to leave is actually false, because at a point in time where even in current status quo, you see very many rich people wanting to go and have a civilization existent on planet Mars. That is all just to show to you the extent to what human nature can be able to push these individuals to in at a point in time that they then become curious. I think this is one thing that happens. At a point in time that individuals in status quo believe that there is a lottery of birth. That is to say, if you're born rich, you're born rich. If you're born this, you're born in that particular way. That necessarily gives people actualization to work harder, because in case they are poor, they have to be work harder. But also existence of things like karma and religion that continuously push for individuals to have to be moral, because they know that they are going to go to hell and things that probably look like that. At a point in time that you cut those things off, you then let people feel like whatsoever they were living in is a lie. Firstly, you then get to have this sort of aggression from the people, because they probably feel like whatsoever had been told to them is a lie. The self-actualization dies out in that particular level. But then what then gets to happen? You increase the disparities that exist within society. That is to say, people who were comfortable living poor because they knew they were going to work very hard to work their way out of the poverty are now going to ask themselves why the person behind the system necessarily made them poor. It means you're going to worsen the disunity within status quo. That is to say, people are going to dislike each other because they feel like they were cheated, because they didn't have any point, or they didn't have any part in trying to like make themselves poor, and things that probably look like that, right? Knowing that someone controls the fact that when COVID-19 erupted, your relative died, knowing that someone was behind the fact that your relative died and those emotions were false and things that probably look like that, you end up creating a society that is filled with aggression,
Yeah.
right? There's a point in time that they're not as curious as you say. These people become very aggressive because they feel like whatsoever is happening to them is not as they thought it was. There is simply someone that is behind the screens that is controlling all the events that keep on happening to them, because these individuals are sentient and they care about their feelings. They're probably going to end up retaliating. That is how you end up having a lot of chaos being existent, and that is why you don't have people like believing in all those things at the end of the day. That is why I say to you that the importance of free will, as I summarize, is that people want to feel that they're in control of their life and their decisions. That gives them the incentive to be moral, that gives them the incentive to not be racist, but that also gives them the incentive to work hard. And that is why you have the entire existence of structure within the society. At a point in time that you then disapprove of that and say that there is someone else that is pulling the strings, then you push the individuals to have to retaliate against the structure that is existent. I beg to submit.
The House thanks the Deputy Leader of Opposition for that very fine speech, and we have come to the end of the opening half. Moving on down to the closing half, I would like to welcome the member of government. Closing government, are you on the call? Closing government, are you on the call? Muhammed, are you on the call?
Yes, ma, I'm on the call. Can you just give me a few minutes to gather my materials together?
Okay, sure.
Can you hear me? Hope I'm audible.
Yes, Mohammed, you're audible. I can hear you. Ask for a few minutes to gather your notes, which obviously is like a minute or so. So I can hear you.
Okay, I will be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, please, am I audible? Hope you can hear me.
You are loud and clear. I can hear you.
Okay, ma'am. So, I think the entire opening half has not actually get what the debate is all about. Again, this house believes a world in which humanity becomes aware that we are living in simulation. Panel, the opening government has shown us some reasons why awareness of a simulation could help humanity, and the opening opposition has raised concerns like fear of nihilism, loss of free will, more aggression, lack of authenticity, propaganda, and even attacks on religion and schools. Okay, today as the whole closing government, we are here to show why all these fears are overstated and why a simulated aware world is not only possible but better than any world the opposition imagines. 1. Freedom and true meaning. But quickly, before I go into what my argument will be all about, just like imagine waking up and discovering that our reality is not what it seems, that it is designed and programmable. So today we support a world where humanity becomes aware of this truth. This awareness does not harm us, it empowers us to create a better world in our own world. 1, I'm going to argue, then in a few minutes I'll come back to the reporters. 1, faster human progress. What do you mean by that? Knowing we live in a simulation lets us understand how the universe works. This is the mechanism behind this. We can hack reality by studying its rules. Examples: cure diseases by understanding biological coding. We can cure disease by understanding biological coding behind it. We can solve energy shortages by manipulating physical limits. Explore space and improve human mind faster rather. Impact. This is the impact of what we are actually claiming on our own side of the world. Humanity goes smarter and achieves more than ever. In our own world, humans are rapidly advancing. Opposition world, as they claim to be, is that people are limited by ignorance and fear. That is what they came to come and give us. Then secondly, better ethics and justice. This is why we are better than the opening government. This is the point. Suffering and injustice are no longer natural. They are no longer natural because we can fix social and political systems like correcting bugs in a program. This is the examples. We can reduce poverty and inequality, stop wars and systemic injustice. Then this is the impact on the society. The society becomes fairer and more comparative. Our world, people work together for good, but in the opposition world, people's problems continue because people accept them as inevitable. Then this is our third argument: freedom and creativity. Awareness frees us from fear of death, failure, or limits. Knowing life is flexible allows both thinking and innovation. Didn't they get it? That art, scientists and philosophers take risks. Mental health improves, our existential fear decreases. Humans reach their full creative potential. That's what we are trying to say in our own word. Then our world is free, it is creative, and it produces brave humans. Then opposition, as they say that fear in their own word, there is fear and limits hold people back. They don't know normally, they are not innovative. They lack the courage, they lack the boldness to actually do something that is favorable to them. Then fourthly, global cooperation. That is our next argument panel. We are showing to you that knowing we share the same simulated world encourages teamwork. Shared reality pushes humanity to solve big problems together. Let us say I am aware of it. We come together, we get global cooperation. We can actually fight climate change. This is the example. We can fight climate change, pandemics, and poverty as a global system. COVID-19 is a global example. Opposition fails to actually tell you this thing. Then this is the impact. Humanity survives and thrives as one system. Let us say just only China, where COVID-19 actually emerges from, they all just stay there and nobody actually they were not cooperated, or they actually opposite themselves in that kind of thing. What would actually happen? But humans, we actually we have the global cooperation, and then they were united, they were purposeful, and they produce what? Smart humans. But opposition world, conflict and selfishness continue in their own side of the world. Now, a quick rebuttal to what we actually got from them. We should know that actually say so many things. Awareness removes meaning and certainty. Rebuttal, this is a quick rebuttal. Meaning is human created, not given by reality. Awareness does not destroy meaning. It allows humans to create purpose consciously. This is the mechanism panel. Look at this, using this, and this is the best analysis you can actually get so far. Once humans understand the simulation, they can choose goals, explore curiosity safely, and craft authentic life. Example, philosophers and artists often create meaning in certain realities. Knowing the simulation enhances this process. It does not diminish it. That's what we are telling you. This is the impact. Life becomes deliberately meaningful, not meaningless. Contrast with OO here, we are telling you that they claim life loses authenticity. We say it gains authenticity because humans choose purpose consciously, not what they are trying to tell us. Then another thing that they said from their own word is that moral and ethical evolution exists from their own word. People may become more aggressive, government may be challenged, but that spreads. We are telling you that awareness allows better governance and ethical reasoning, not chaos. Understanding reality's rules lets human correct injustice systematically. People can hold government accountable without destructive rebellion. Not everything not everything is aggressive and every other thing. So example is global issues like climate change, poverty and disease could be tackled collectively because humans realize these are fixable bugs rather than inevitable fates. Now onward, we are telling you that humanity becomes more moral, more ethical,
Right.
and more complete.
My
Complete
time is
peace
up.
rest. Exactly what OO wants, but in a safe, structured way. We don't want. We don't.
Government, your time is
They
up.
did not tell us how morality exists from their own word. My time is up.
Yes, please. Who is that person that was asking me
Okay.
while the other is 15 seconds extra? Um, the panel thanks the member of government for that very fine speech and would gladly welcome the member of opposition, please.
All right, Chair, please, am I audible?
Yes, you are. Are you in a void, like in an empty room? Your voice is echoing.
Something like that. Something I'm moving about, but I just hope I'm audible enough.
Okay, you are. Don't worry. If that's the case, yeah, carry on.
Okay, thank you. So before I begin, I just have to do this. I want to give a little shout out to Esther. Thank you very much for the experience, the tournament, and everything. To all the pros that took their time to set the motions and guide us. Thank you so much. So my fellow novices and lots of people I can't name now. I admire most of you actually. So thank you so much. Thank you. Um, yeah, without further ado, I'll just set my timer and begin my speech right now. So my speech begins now in 3, 2, 1, go. The reason why CG made themselves less relevant in this debate is because they assume that the notion saying that we become aware that we're in a simulation then means that we understand the simulation. It's simply like you. I'll ask everyone, I'm going to make this very practical. If you find out that the moon landing by like Neil Armstrong was fake, what does it change in your basic life? Nothing. It doesn't mean you understand how NASA works and all that. Given this, it means that most people will not give a shit about the fact that they simply find out that, oh, we are in a simulation and whatnot. Given that it doesn't impact their basic daily life. I mean, look at the poor person in the slum living his daily life and you see on the news that, oh, breaking news, we are living in a simulation. How does that help that guy? I think most of the benefits they get to is not even actualized. I'm going to come to that later. Let's get to our basic extensions here. The first I'm going to talk about, which was hinted in the opening opposition, but we're going to mechanize it more, is how the resource allocation in the status quo becomes channeled more to this particular discovery in a bad way. What does this mean? One, humans are going to be motivated by two things once they find this out. First, to break out of this particular simulation, given that curiosity, like the OO mentioned, drives them to do crazy things. They want to know how do we break out of this? How do we actualize? Because we just like the way we found out that we are living on a ball, grid ball, earth, and all that. And then they want to understand and explore space and all that. But the second thing is that they may want to communicate externally with the people that put them in this simulation, given that we found out that this simulation was created by a higher civilization, like the motion says. What does this then lead to? One, like let's mechanize this now. First of all, vast majority of people, like I said, don't care or understand the implication of this discovery. So what it means now, for those that care about this discovery, not everyone possesses the means to investigate this new reality. What does this mean? One, there is a diversion of attention from meaningful projects, for meaningful things that we do in our lives, right, to actually trying to understand the simulation. So all these things about climate change, all these things about ending the poverty gap and all that, is shifted to this particular idea that we just found out that we are living in a fake reality and a fake simulation. People now want to understand this because they feel like understanding this particular thing becomes a key to a better reality, whether or not that actually is true. But the second thing here, which was hinted by the OO, is that more advanced countries control the narrative. That's when they talked about the case of propaganda in the OO, but they didn't tell you why this is principally bad and how this even comes about. Let's mechanize this for you. First of all, Note that the Western world mostly controls the narrative in terms of advancement. Why and how is this true? Because in the most instances, they are the ones that get advancement first. The idea of the space race, right? The idea of vaccination and all that. Before all these technological advancements comes to the greater, the other parts of the world, yeah, most of them, because of their higher technological advancements, know about this more. What it means is that they control how this information is released and who gets to understand this information. It means that the same way you find out that, oh, space is like this and all that, the information comes from NASA. You don't question it, I don't question it, right? Because NASA is the authority that tells us what goes on in space and whatnot. It means that when they find out about this simulation, we have only certain countries and people that have the resources to be able to investigate this particular thing. It means that the information they yield to the basic man is based on the particular propaganda they want to yield, based on the particular ideology they want to push. Why is this particular thing principally bad? One, because bad actors can particularly use that ideology to shape the way they want to bring like things in status quo. Take an example of how in history, the black race was seen to be an inferior race. Why? Because of the narrative that were pushed. And some people simply bought the idea. People felt like we are an inferior race. Before things started coming up, they felt like we were a superior race. You see propaganda all pushed by the West simply because they feel like, yeah, they deserve, this is their inherent right. What stops them from pushing this particular propaganda? What stops them from pushing an ideology that because we're in a simulation, most of what you know is fake? Most of the ideology of you feeling that women are simply can be equal to men is fake because this is the fake ideology. They can simply push what they want to push by the West. This creates a sort of imbalance between the basic people that may not even care about this thing, particularly in the status quo, and people that may not even have the resources to investigate this, and then even the Western world and those who hold the power of this. But let's get to our second extension here, how this collapse social structures in the status quo. Note, religion, morality, and whatnot depends on what we believe and what we think is true. In this particular instance, the government tries to push an ideology that once we feel that there is nothing actually beyond this our space, everything is fair game, right? It means that people then believe that, oh, yeah, I can do what I want to do. Free will becomes better. The OO tries to argue against that, how free will is bad. What do we bring to you in this regard? What we tell you is that this particular instance, when you think that there is a higher, or like we live in a simulation that has been created, what happens is that religion collapses. They try to argue that it is better in the OG. They try to argue only on negative impact of extremism and whatnot. They fail to realize that religion has very, very, very basic positive impacts. Yeah? Religion promotes morality, promotes good things and whatnot. When that collapses, what happens? Everyone also believes that this is what fair game. It means that the idea of the good things that the good that people preach about religion also collapses in this particular case. When you move from a world where the status quo, let everything be on a simple level, because in the status quo in our world, we have extremism, we also have good. In their own particular world here, the collapse of that good is more evident. And what happens is that extremism becomes on the level where people believe that there is nothing that holds them accountable to that regard. On the level of morality, we think on that regard, we think that collapse is principally bad. But the third thing here is the fact that we think that this puts humanity at risk. Why is this bad? I'm going to stop at this particular point and then continue my next speech. Because we think that for people to create a particular simulation where they control us, and then them to understand that we are trying to break out of that simulation, given that we prove to you, what happens is that those higher civilizations may deem us a threat. Why is this bad? Because we understand that we don't even have the resources to explore that external simulation in the first place. It means that most people, when they consider the humanity a threat because they want to understand the outer space more, it means my time is up. It means that they may actually we can actually tell the impact of what happened in our world, given that we are at the mercy of a higher civilization. This is principally time. Okay, I have to stop here and continue my next speech. I'm so sorry. I'm proud to approve.
All right. So please, just realize that after your 5 minutes, you still have 15 seconds. But I hear you very well. Please, before we go over to the government and opposition leaves, can the opening half help me write out their speaking orders on the text space so that it's easier when I'm filling ballots? Thank you. I absolutely forgot to take cognizance of that. So please, OG and OO, please, your speaking order on the text space, order in the text space. Thank you. All right. So while they are doing that, government whip, I would like to thank the member of opposition for his very fine speech and welcome the government whip to conclude the argument submission for the government bench. Here. All right, thank you. Muhammed, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, I'm ready whenever you are.
Okay, I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. I think the first and the CEO has not actually engage our case, and I believe they are just giving just more extension to what their OO has said. So, but firstly, let me start by clarifying the concept. A simulation is a highly advanced computational system in which everything we experience, our bodies, objects, laws of physics, even time itself, is engineered. It is real to us, yet programmable. So the opening government began this discussion, and the opposition raised concerns about free will, aggression, and loss of authenticity. So as the closing government, as I have stated earlier, we are here to extend, clarify, and weigh these arguments, showing why a word aware of its simulated nature is not only desirable but better than any alternative imagined by the opposition. One, you should know that knowledge unlocks true freedom and progress. We are telling you that OG hinted a societal benefit. We go further. Awareness gives human control over reality itself. This is the mechanism. Once humanity knows the rules of the universe, we can experiment safely, we can innovate, and optimize every aspect of our life. This is the examples. Medicine, for example, now, diseases like cancer and neurodegeneration can be understood and eradicated. Energy, scarcity becomes a design problem, not a limit. Then exploration. Humans push boundaries in space, recognition, and technology. Now, let us do the weighing. Knowledge empowers humanity far more than ignorance, as they prove in their own side of the world, which traps us in. To show you why, which traps us in slow progress and unsolved problems. OO's fear of chaos is short-term. Long-term gain, it is transformative, according to what? According to CEO also. Then the impact is this: humanity accelerates in science, health, and technology, creating a world unimaginable in any opposition scenario. Then we are trying to tell you, when they said something about religion and the likes, you should know that this is how it works. This is how the world looks like. As I've actually explained earlier on, we are telling you in our own side of the speech that God.
Clarity.
Muhammed, are you still there?
Can you hear me, please? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So sorry. Okay. What you get from the OG and OO when they are battling about religion, education, and society, we are telling that awareness does not destroy religion. It allows humans to understand its ethical and spiritual teachings more deeply. So education becomes meaningful because humans learn to master their world, not just pass exams. Schools evolve into centers of creativity, morality, and skill building. So in our own world, they are telling you that humanity goes wiser, spiritually aware, and intellectually advanced more than what they actually say school is scam and everything they bring from their own end there. So this is how we have to build it. World building, how our simulated aware world looks like. One, knowledge and science. Humans understand the rules of the universe and innovate it rapidly. When this knowledge is there, they are able to think faster. Then ethics and society. Justice and awareness are designed, not left to chance. Corruption and inequality are minimized in our own world. Then we tell you that creativity and mental health. People are free from fear and can explore ideas fully, more than what you get from OO and what the CEO actually said to you, and we create our own world better than what the OG actually came here to do. Then we tell you that religion has meaning in our own world. Humanity, spiritual life continues. It's enriched by awareness of reality's design. Then we tell you that global cooperation. Humanity solves problems together instead of fighting each other. This is a construct with OO and then CO words. OO's fear of aggression, chaos are mitigated by the education that we provided in our own world, ethics, and collective responsibility. Our world is safer, fairer, and more meaningful than theirs. So we are telling you that human plays two meaning in life. Curiosity, if society becomes more moral and just, curiosity is channeled into progress, not chaos. Religion and education flourish in understanding, not empty ritual that they actually do in their own world there. Then we tell you that humanity unites to solve global challenges. This is not a word of despair or danger, as you said. It's a word where humans are empowered, one, ethical, and purposeful. That is why we strongly affirm this motion, that the humanity becomes more aware that we are living in simulation is a word that is very, very better in their own side of the world. Quickly, I would like to actually say a few things that I'm telling you that we are trying to buttress in our own world. This is our world. Humans fearful, reactive, chaotic, like I have said earlier on. So our world wins because it is safe, ethical, innovative, united, purposeful, and actually very creative. And I've actually proved this very well in my first speech. And this is what I'm trying to actually we are trying to corroborate in our own world too. That is what we are trying to actually say, that in our own world, where everything that they have to give us, they don't provide the regulation they are going to provide to human being. Anything they provide in their own word, morality is actually in decadence in their own word. They have nothing to say to the humanity. They have nothing to tell people that they are that are very aggressive. So we say the opposite. Morality improves when humans understand life is a
With your
design.
time up.
Share.
All right. So the panel thanks the government whip for that very kind speech and gladly welcomes opposition whip to summarize the debate for us. Thank you. Here.
All right, once more, please. Am I clearly audible?
Yes, you are.
All right. Okay. I am in the round again. My partner never turned up at all. So I'll begin my speech in. Sorry, am I still audible?
Of course, please continue.
All right, sorry. I begin my speech now in 3, 2, 1. The reason why the opening government is better than CG is because they admit that this enables us to possibly break out, gives us the ability to self-actualize and make a variety of choices. The key word here is that they concede to the fact that this gives us a platform to achieve these benefits. The problem in the CG now is that they assure us of achieving these benefits. Note that for you to get assured of these benefits, it is hinged on the premise where you understand how to actually achieve it. But the motion only says you become aware that you're living in a simulation. It doesn't mean that you get the knowledge or you get to understand it. If I'm living in Nigeria here and I become aware, for instance, that one certain asteroid is not going to hit Nigeria in a particular time, it doesn't change any particular thing for me, given that I may not even understand how to use that thing, it doesn't impact my daily life. But if we don't even have the technological advancement to even understand that particular thing, how do you then get the myriad of benefits that the CG talks about, like improved creativity all of a sudden, increased knowledge all of a sudden, ethics and all that? Humanity even becomes harmonious. How do you even get that thing? Simply because we just know, or we are being told that we live in this particular simulation, given the status quo. I think let's get back to the debate. Let's examine what our opening told us. The opening told us that the curiosity by individuals is what drives us to particularly try to even understand this particular new reality, right? And it leads to propaganda and all that. The problem is that we didn't tell you why that is particularly important or how it is impactful. I think my member talked about that specifically in my opening speech. But they also talked about how disparity worsens in the particular society. We tell you how that disparity worsens here when we tell you that this information flow comes from those who have access to technology and resources to try and investigate this new reality, and they control how this information is passed to the rest of the world. Given that we don't know every single thing, I mean, if you try to browse on NASA's library and all that, you get to understand a lot more about space that you even need to know in your lifetime. Given that they get to tell you and explain to you how this simulation works, they control how this information flows, they control the impact of this new particular thing in the world and the certain narratives that may stem out from this particular regard. This is what leads to that particular disparity that you get and why it's principally bad in the open opposition. But why do we think the governments in total, before I even come to the extension again in my first speech, is out? Let's get to the OG. The OG talks about how this gives you the ability to self-actualize simply because I become aware that I am living in a simulation. Response to this, some people don't even buy into systems. The status quo notes that some of these ideologies are even running about. It means that the status quo, some people believe that God doesn't even exist. Atheism is a thing. Some people believe that God exists. Some people believe that we actually spirits. If we die, we all go to dust and whatnot. Some people believe other things. Those particular people, do they self-actualize the maximum way, the maximum benefits that you actually get? It doesn't really mean shit. Why? Because people will even choose to buy into the system they want to choose. It means that if we become aware that this is actually truth, and in this instance, we still have those that become belligerent and those that may not even want to buy into this particular system and still justify how they relate in the status quo. You don't suddenly jump, that's a big logical gap, to simply being aware of something to now say, I now have the resources to be able to self-actualize in the way I want. But then they talk about how religion, diversity, and all that gets out. They try to mechanize that is the good thing. Why do we think it is flawed in their part? Simply because they only mechanize the bad things to you. They push extremism. They push the fact that diversity causes all these bad things and all that. They forget that religion, like I said in my first speech, also promotes peace and whatnot. It means that in every system we have the good and the bad. If you simply try to push an ideology and say, once this out religion, you out all the bad things associated with religion, then what happens in this particular case? Note that for the government to win this debate, they have to prove to you that the benefits of these particular things that comes from becoming aware are assured, one, and they don't even lead to more harm and disarray in the status quo. We don't negate the fact that the status quo has harmful experiences that we have racism in the status quo and all that. We don't negate that fact. We're not trying to say that we can actually eliminate every single thing in the status quo, but we're trying to say for us to prefer their own particular word, you must prove that those benefits you bring are assured. We prove to you how most of them are not even assured. And the second thing, those benefits don't lead to more harm. We can recognize to you how all this harm become existent and how they become much more significant given the status quo that we live in. But part of the things most of the things they talk about, like existential stability and all that, you can see proving they don't prove to you how you move from simply knowledge of something that is even way above your particular advancement, given that this is an advanced civilization and whatnot, and it becomes a sort of transitory knowledge. It means that there was a world where once we were living in our status quo. The emotion said we become aware, meaning that there was a world where we were just living on our own, and suddenly now we begin to we understand that we are living in a simulation. It means that this particular point we have not even reached the point where we say, oh, we can actually mechanize and get to all these particular things. It means that at that sudden part there is an increase in tension, an increase in disarray, and most of those particular benefits they bring, given the way they mechanize it, don't even come to actualization. What did I tell you in my first speech? I spoke to you about, I mechanized to you how the tool for propaganda actually comes about and how it is bad. I also mechanized to you, secondly, how this particular thing leads to a collapse of social structures. But the third thing my partner was talking about for which to mechanize it fully is how this puts humanity at risk. I also talked about the poor channeling of resources, where you move things towards investigating this and how you self-sabotage yourself, but not focusing on the current events that actually affect you. But how you put humanity at risk simply because you actually alert that advanced civilization, hypothetically, who try to see humans as attempting to break out of this their newfound reality in this particular case. You don't understand the possible impact, hypothetically, of what they give you in this case and how it affects your current social structure. I think on all these metrics,
UI.
prove to you that I assure you of harm. My time is actually up. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think my time is up. I'm very proud to close.
Okay, so I want to thank the opposition whip for that very fine speech, and also thank each and every speaker that have taken out the time to be a part and parcel of this particular tournament. You guys have been amazing. However, a winner must emerge. So please allow panel some few minutes to deliberate, and we'll be back for announcements and awards. Okay, judges, please. We are deliberating on Discord, so let's move to room 1 on the Discord channel. Have a lovely afternoon, everybody. Bye.